Welcome in. Welcome in.
Hi,
Yeah.
Shaka.
Hey, how you doing?
You.
Great. We'll just give it maybe like 2 more minutes and then we'll do our check-ins and catch up. Keeping an eye on the phone and just seeing anyone has messaged. Okay, so maybe everyone is just a bit late. So I know Gina might not be here. She's in India. And then I know Cherry said she wouldn't make it. Hi. So let's just see. Let's just give it a few more minutes and then I think we'll get started. Yeah, just trying to. So I think maybe we'll start. I think we'll start. We'll go ahead and we'll see who kind of comes in later on as we go along. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to, yeah, just check in. How's your week been? How are you? And yeah, did you watch the videos, the homework? Kind of how are you feeling about it all? Any thoughts, reflections? Yeah, would love to know. So whatever you feel comfortable to share, please. And Candice, you're always the first on my screen, so I always start with you. So um
All good. All good. Thank you, Shaka. Morning, Aisha. Sorry, evening, Aisha. Um, I listened to the the reckoning. The ladies were
yeah,
talking about that.
yeah.
That was very sad, and it was very moving about what they were talking about and what she had to go through as a child. And yeah, that
Mm.
was very eye-opening. And I didn't do the Juan live. I still need to do that for the shadow work.
Hmm.
Uh, but I've been going into my own shadow, even though I haven't done that. And experiencing some things and shifting some energies and things like that. So it's been
Mm.
a very deep week and weekend.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, well done. Well done for diving in because it's not
Thank
easy.
you.
It's not easy. Yeah.
No, been
Yeah.
very emotional and emotions coming up like all the time. I think just being able to release
Yeah.
gives
Yeah.
a sense of healing anyway,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well done. And I'm really pleased. And yeah, just sending you lots of support around you to hold you in this moment because it's a beautiful one, but it's not easy. And I have a theory about this emotional thing, when a lot of emotions come up and out, some people think, oh my God, it's a sign I'm going backwards, or, something
that's
might be
what I'm
wrong.
feeling as well. Yeah.
But it isn't. It's actually a sign that there's things within you that it's time and it's ready and it's safe enough for those things to be seen and witnessed and held and released. And, so yeah, I just take it as a real positive sign actually, because it means we feel safe enough to allow those feelings to come through. So yeah, well done. And I should have warned you, but maybe I should have. I did wonder, shall I put a trigger warning on the video of Reckoning? Because obviously there is a subject of like
Mm.
incest, child abuse. Um, I chose not to because I actually thought it was the opposite. I actually thought the conversation inspired me, and actually it for me it was a kind of wow, like here's someone who's gone through things that I can't even imagine, and look what she's poured into the world. Look how she's given, like it was for me, it felt inspired. It was sad. I mean, it made me cry, but I was like, whoa, man, these are like two powerhouse women talking about their lives in very real ways, and also just how they're bringing their work into the world. Um,
Yes.
it was incredibly inspiring, I thought. So yeah, like well done for watching it. It wasn't, yeah, it's heavy stuff. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, it was heavy stuff. So yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Candice.
you.
Thank you so much. And Aisha, how, how are you?
Hi Shaka, hi Candace. Thank you. Good evening. I'm good. We are into Ramadan, so it's like having hardly having 2 hours sleep. So I have to admit I didn't get an opportunity because it's just like we're 4 days into Ramadan, so my
Yeah.
schedule is a bit up and down. But it's like I didn't get an opportunity to watch or read, but I've been connecting a lot with myself. Like
Mhm.
this week, I was like, I just want to just look into myself. I
Mm.
love what we did last time, like finding the bliss and and like how to say it, basing on that, I said I'm gonna do things which will make me happy,
Mhm.
connecting with the friends which I know are my friends,
Mhm.
connecting with the people that raise my vibrations.
Mhm.
And I have to admit, I was very busy socializing because I actually met, I mean, even when we were fasting, I just met them. And they were not fasting, they had a coffee. But I must say, I had a very uplifting week.
Mm.
A lot, and I think, sort of overcome my traumas. Like, I literally like say, okay, I faced you, I know you're there, and I'm accepting you, and I'm moving on. So
Mm.
this is what I did the entire week.
Mm.
Every time the trauma, the grief, the hurt come back, because every time I would go out to socialize, there was a fear of a past trauma that I went through 4 years back. And I said, okay, I know you're there. You will always be there facing it. And so
Wow.
it was very, very uplifting.
Wow.
Um, very, very uplifting. And yeah, and interestingly, I never absorbed any energy from the malls.
Mm.
That was interesting because I don't know. It was I faced the fear. It was that kind of a situation or what. But on all the three occasions, Shaka, I did not absorb any like I did not come back. I did not feel heavy. I was I was fine. So I was like, okay, I haven't. So yeah, this is what I did past 5 days.
Wow. This is giving me goosebumps. This is incredible. This is incredible. I mean, firstly, yeah, I know, like, obviously Ramadan is like a deep, this is a, this is a moment to kind of cocoon, go like deep within like your personal spirituality. I always know like fasting is like a real, it's in every single, any pathway to God is always going to involve fasting, and it's like a real big moment. So I just think it coupled with this, it sounds like it's been a really powerful week. And yeah, just I'm really glad. I got shivers there when you just said that you felt the fear and you acknowledged it, but just said, you know what? I know you're there. I'm going to witness you and I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyway. And I just think, wow, like again, just well done for going there and facing that. And I wonder if there is something connected to that and the not feeling drained. It's interesting because on my mat this morning, I was thinking about psychotherapeutic models for human nature as converse to like spiritual models, right? And I was dancing with it and I was like, they're not complete. One without the other is not complete. So if you're in a psychotherapeutic model without the spiritual, it's incomplete, and vice versa. Because I think what can tend to happen, and this is what I believe, is that if we are not conscious of our shadow, and I don't mean shadow as in our bad stuff, but if we are not, there's things that we aren't aware of about ourselves that gets projected out into the world. I was realizing, I was like, your spiritual practice will be changed forever once you know about projection and transference and counter transference. Like once you start to become aware of that, then it's hard. Like you can couch it in spiritual terms, and it might be, but there's also another way of looking at it. And I just think if you can approach it in those two different ways, and it sounds like you are bringing those two, that's kind of what I heard when you said. So it's so funny that I thought that this morning, and that's kind of what I'm hearing from you. So kind of bringing those two things together, that kind of awareness of yourself, but then also when you're moving out into the world and protecting your energy, it's massive.
It is. And also I did something very funny. I have to. So there was this very famous designer came to Dubai, and a friend of mine called. I said, "You want to go?" I said, "Okay, we'll go." So we left from 7:30 in the morning, drove all the way to Dubai. We reached there. The moment when we reached, it was packed. It was packed. It was a very, very exclusive place. And I was like, Aisha, do not panic. You're not, and I love clothing. I love dressing up and I love to be up. I don't shop a lot, but I like to be smartly dressed. I was like, no, but you're not going to panic. You're not going to feel like you used to feel that because this was my week. Like this was the things I was working on. So I said, you will not let those feelings get the best of you, that you're not able to buy the dress or something. You're just coming because you want to absorb the energy, you want to have fun, you want to see what colors are in, and just take it easy.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in, it started at 10, we were the 11:15, all sold out. And they were like, it was beaming with rich of the rich. I was like, wow. And my friend is looking. I remember I saw this dress which was black and white, and I'm like, what is it? And I looked at the price tag. It was 6,000 dirhams, and I was like, no, maybe it's 600. I saw 10 more, and a lady pulled it out of my hand. It's mine. I said, you can buy 12. I don't want it. Then I saw some beautiful colors, kaftans, and I'm like, nice. Did I buy? No. I went to the corner. I love the vibe. I look at them and I said, wow, so sad. There was a time I used to be one of them. And I'm so, so happy of myself that I'm not one of them. I did not even buy, and I saw beautiful colors. I did not buy a single thing. I enjoyed. And then I came back. And my husband said, no. I said, no.
Money in your pocket.
I said, no.
Yeah.
And I remember my friend called me that somebody else said, then why did you go? And my friend said, I was with Aisha. She's chill. She said, wow, that was a great, drive. I loved it. We had a great coffee. We had a great breakfast.
Great time,
We
great
chatted.
journey. Yeah.
We enjoyed the scenery all the way to Dubai. My driver took a very nice route, Sadia, and I had a great time, but I did not buy a single thing.
Wow.
What a new me, yeah? I
A
loved
new
it. I'm
you. And I
proud
can
of myself.
see your energy is like, yeah, I can feel this new spark. It's wonderful. It's, yeah, powerful, incredible. And yeah, I just, yeah, beaming, just beaming for you.
Must. I mean, it was a place, Shaka. Every woman, she would look at me up and down. What is she's wearing? I was dressed up fine, but I did not buy a single thing.
Yeah, good for
So
you.
it was amazing. I'm so proud of myself. I'm really, really so proud of myself. That
Mm.
is my biggest achievement of this previous week.
Wow.
I think I'm a new person.
And it sounds like you're enjoying it, like enjoying the journey, enjoying the fun of it, like kind of being a bit more like social and free and, chill. Like you said, you're chill. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much, Aisha. Yeah, let's continue. Let's keep going because I'm realizing like we're halfway through now. So we're like on the other side of halfway through, and I was like, oh gosh, it's actually gone so quickly. I don't know how you feel about it. But
Because you
you're
told me you have done a cycle of life. I don't know what was that last time. I said, no, in every department of my life, I'm halfway through. And you said, no, you have. And it stayed with me, Shaka.
yeah.
And that day when I came back, I wanted to write you that, Shaka, you're right. I have at least the one thing I realized,
Mhm.
I have done a circle.
Yes.
I've got a lesson. The greed is gone.
Mm.
I'm grounded. I know that life is there's much more to life than this. So
Wow.
yeah,
Oh, giving me just shivers. You're
you.
taking it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
It's so no, it's yours. This is, you showing up, you engaging with it, you doing it, you walking it. So just well done. I'm so proud of you as well. Um,
Gratitude, lots
yeah.
of gratitude to you
Mm, mm,
so much.
thank you. Thank you. Um, yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful stuff, powerful ideas. Um, Jan, I'm aware. I know you said you kind of. How are you feeling? Do you feel you kind of want to check in? How you? Yeah. How's your?
I'm okay. I cannot. Sorry, guys. I had lost my voice a bit. I lost my grandmother last week, so I'm going through a bit of a hard time emotionally. So I don't want to get into it because I start crying right away. But so it's been a bit hard, and it affected my voice yesterday and today. So it's almost like you just have a lump in your throat. I literally have a lump in my throat. Have nodules in my vocal cords, so they get activated if I'm like, whether it can be emotional, it can be if I'm singing too much. Um. But yesterday and today, I have like severe pain here when I talk, or swallow and stuff. So it's like right here. So I feel like it's a bit probably emotional. So I'm not gonna be able to talk too much today in the session, but I wanted to join anyway because I had to miss last week, because I had to fly home. But yeah, so I'm dealing with it. But I guess one thing I can say is I wanted to stay longer for my mom, but I chose to leave on Sunday, come back to London for me because I didn't feel like I had the space and the capacity to grieve the way I wanted to there with my whole family and being there with my mom and everybody. My grandmother was somebody I loved most in the world. One of the people I loved most in the world, was really close and it was very unexpected. Um, so I felt really proud to come back and have my own space to deal with it and kind of go through what I'm going through right now, rather than put everybody else first like I would have done, which I still do. I'm calling my mom every second, I text with her all the time, but I needed this and normally I would not have done this. I would have still been there and put myself into a different situation. And I think one thing I can say is through this journey is being able to put that kind of boundary and also put that vulnerability. Because Saturday I left the house in tears because my mom came into my room and said, "Can you stay, till Wednesday?" And I didn't know what to do with it because all I wanted to do was leave. Um, and cry, the way I wanted to, and I couldn't. I constantly had to hide and cry, in my room, in my family home. But but then we met and we talked, and I was able to be vulnerable and tell her that I need to leave. I'll come back, but right now I need to leave, and have my own space for this. So I guess that kind of falls into last week's session, which I couldn't join, but I watched it. today, actually, last week's session. So it felt interesting because it fit with everything I felt with vulnerability and but also boundaries and resilience and everything that you guys went through last week. But yeah, that's all I wanted to kind of say. So thank you.
Thank you, Janan. And I really feel really emotional hearing you speak. It's really, I feel, and I just want you to know, like, we're holding you in lots of love.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank
And you
you.
move through this process.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. So thanks.
Yeah, and I hope it just, can give you just a little diversion. I know, grief is a winding road. It's not linear,
I
it's
mean, it makes present life more important, right? So, like these things that maybe seem little, but actually are bigger in the grand scheme of things. It just makes you appreciate I don't know, the regular normalcy a bit more. So it's
yeah,
important.
for sure.
Yeah.
And just again, well done as well for putting yourself first and just knowing what you needed in this moment and giving yourself permission to grieve in the way that you felt you needed to right now. And I'm really
The problem was the guilt, right? Like leaving her or them and feeling guilty and kind of I didn't feel, I tried really hard not to feel guilty this time. Um, because I needed this and I'm so glad I came back. I needed the kind of my own normalcy and space.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's all, yeah, through this process. So thank you. Thanks for everything so far.
Oh no, honestly, it's an honor. It's an absolute honor. I'm just glad to have you here, and thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank
Uh,
you. Sorry that's gonna be short. Sorry if I don't talk much
oh,
more.
don't be sorry at all. Nothing to apologize for. No, thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Um, and that's part of this space, right? Is like possibly sharing things that maybe is not easy or possible for us to share in other spaces. So again, thank you all for your vulnerability as well, in sharing that. It's not required, but it's held with the greatest of care as well. I want you to know that. So thank you. Yeah, so let's do a nice grounding practice. Actually, I think we'll do a nice meditation. I think it would be nice for us to do like a nice little meditation, and then we'll kind of move into the theory of today. But let's just get nice and comfy to begin with. And just allow yourself to come into your seat however you like. And particularly for today, this feels like um, a theme around giving yourself something that you need. So I'm going to invite you now, even before we begin, if there's anything that you feel you might need in this moment with you right now, before we start this embodied practice. So if there's an object or a blanket, it could be a visual thing. But just thinking about something that would give you extra comfort and grounding in this moment. So again, you can maybe reach for that in your space or reach for it mentally and visually inside. And if it's even an object or something in your mind, I just want you to really feel and try on what it feels like to have this thing of comfort with you. Just relaxing into that energy, whatever energy that gives you, emotional feelings. Just let yourself reside in that. Reside in the comfort. In the feeling of being held, in the feeling of being supported and having what you need. And so as you hold that vision, that feeling, going to just taking your awareness to your breath and just breathing in nice and slow, nice and deep. Just noticing what it feels like to have that feeling, feel more in your body rather than a visual or a vision, a mental or an emotional feeling or thought. Start to use your breath to expand the sensation in the body, the bandwidth. You can even imagine drawing it into all your cells, your muscles, your tendons, down into your bone. Feeling of embodiment. So just noticing this journey from a visual kind of concept, journeys into a feeling, a thought, a sensation. And through the breath, we're able to bring this into the body. Now this becomes a truth, a reality. And just continuing to breathe here, just releasing behind the eyes, letting go of the mind. Breathing in that new experience, that new reality. New feeling in your body. Trusting and knowing you are held, divinely guided. I'm just going to invite you now to just drop down into your heart. Just take a moment just to reside there in the energy of your heart. Nice deep breaths. Just noticing what's there in your heart. How does it feel? What's present? It might be different things, opposite things. Just noticing maybe you can have some descriptive words, spaciousness, or not spacious. Any sadness and joy, both coexisting in this beautiful space in your heart. Just staying connected with your breath, breathing in nice and slow, nice and deep, nice and steady. Soften the back of the eyes, soften the mind. And just staying with the energy of your heart. Imagine there being a beautiful ball of light in your heart. Maybe even seeing your heart beat, feeling that connection to your center, your aliveness. And just allowing that ball of light to continue to grow, allowing it to get bigger and bigger until you can feel it enveloping your whole body, almost like a protective bubble. Just feeling yourself surrounded, that energy of your heart. And again, depending on where your energy is today, you are welcome to continue to expand that heart energy. You maybe want to extend it to your whole house and everyone who's inside the house, maybe your wider community of where you live, maybe specific people you have in mind that you would like to include in this beautiful bubble, in this beautiful energy of light from your heart. Maybe you want to envelop the whole world or a whole country. Or maybe you just want to keep it for yourself. And just allowing your energy to reside where it feels most congruent for you today in this moment. Feeling the loving protection all around you. Allowing yourself to let go of any tension, any holding. And just absorb. Absorb this beautiful energy of your heart. Allowing yourself to feel contained and protected. Grounded, open. Bright and alive. And then whenever you are ready, you can just drop your chin down into your chest. Whenever you're ready, you can open the eyes and bring your awareness back into the space. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to write down if there's anything that came through. You're welcome to just jot that in your journal or just, yeah, we give you 3 or 5 minutes to do that if you need. Okay. How are you doing? Do you need more time or is that enough? Yeah, ready? Wonderful. Okay, so this week we're going to look at mythology. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Because it will make more sense as we go along rather than me do a little preamble. But I think we will just dive right on in. So I'm going to share my screen, hoping you can see this. So I think I'm gonna, we always do this. This happens every week. I'm like, right, where do I put everyone? There we are. I like this way of doing it. I'm not going to do a whole slideshow. I'm just going to put it up there so we can kind of see the slides and I can see you at the same time. Let me see. I'm just going to move this. No. Oh, no. Oh. Oh my goodness, we do this every time. Right, okay, here we are. I still haven't figured this out. Okay, we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it. um, so this week we are doing mythology. So introduction, mythology. So we're kind of circling back around to the hero's journey today with this one by looking at mythology. It's, I have to caveat, it's a big subject. People study this at doctorate level. This is like, well, you see someone like Joseph Campbell, for example, who we would call a mythologist, as someone who studies mythology. It's a massive subject. So it's more just a touchstone here. And I guess to just plant the seed, really. But it's also an invitation that, like, if any of this resonates, there may be maybe something more for you to dive into here. So what is mythology or myth? Essentially, it could be called folklore, could be just stories, could be fairy tales. But essentially, these are stories that are human stories of humanity, that essentially tell us something about ourselves. It might be about entertainment. We think about coming around a campfire and sharing stories. It's just something very human about this need for stories. And we notice this obviously, particularly with the hero's journey. Something that Joseph Campbell highlighted was this kind of rhythm or this pattern to stories. And so we can start to expand this and start to look at different stories and look at mythology and see where we can find these connections, I want to say. These are like these connections, I want to say. These could be as I said, it could be religious stories, it could be fables, fairy tales, epics. Essentially it's how we understand our lives, each other, and society, and how we essentially weave meaning around the human condition, and human events. So mythology uses metaphor, magic, animals, and symbolism to elucidate the human experience. Often myths emerge from religious or cultural history. And they can be thought of as historical entertainment. We enjoy stories because they grip us and entertain us, and because we see ourselves and our lives in these stories too. So it's a really big part of our humanness, is to embrace story and myth. And so I guess this lecture today, or this today, is essentially an invitation as to where are your stories, your narratives, and where are you inviting the story? What is the story? So like I said, I hope today just gets a little flavor of how stories play such an important part in our self-understanding and our own self-realization. Yeah. I wanna like maybe a modern kind of mythologist kind of teacher is Michael Mead. He's incredible actually. It's a lot he does a lot of stuff like again very similar to kind of Joseph Campbell in the sense that just very well read and very just drawing out these kinds of stories and mythology. So I got a little video from him here I wanted to play, just to kind of give us a little sense, kind of a flavor. I think he puts it into better words. Right. Oh, hold on a second. Why is it not letting me play? Hang on. Oh, no, it is.
So soul is typically what's missing. When soul is present, we can hold the opposites together. We can hold the masculine and the feminine. We can hold time with timelessness when soul is present, because soul is both ancient and immediate. That's the beautiful nature of the soul. The soul is our connection to the most ancient things, the deep treasury of human inheritance that most people are not even aware of, which can also be called the universal archetypes that underpin human life. And on the other hand, the immediate moment, which can always open to inspiration, to invention, to art and creativity. The soul holds those two things together. And so when things are falling apart, it's usually a lack of soul. And then what I'm trying to say is, even when things are falling apart on the surface, there is a response from the depth of the human soul, partially in the form of awakening archetypes. And I'll repeat the idea. When we understand things like that, it helps us realize we are not alone. We are educated to think we are an isolated, accidental being in the midst of a world that cannot be understood because it's accidental also. The sense of deep archetypal energies that carry knowledge, that also can provide motivation and have aims, is a different sense, a different understanding, a different vision than that idea that it's all an accident. So many of the symptoms at the end of an era involve this polarization between the old, cold, tired, hidebound, time-bound, dominant institutions, energies, attitudes, and the trying to awaken new, visionary, transformative energies that are always there also. I hope that's making sense, because you can look at many of the things happening in the world as the polarization of the tension between those two things. And when those things become more polarized in the world, they become more polarized inside a person. And back to the beginning of this, we are going to be crushed by the weight of the historical problems coming to the surface of life if we don't have access to the deep resources and the grounding potentials of the soul, and in particular, this capacity to touch back into the ancient, which is trying to catch up with us, and also envision things that have not been seen yet, which is part of the Kairos moment. So when I bring the human soul and the individual soul into this, I'm using an old idea which says that humans are the make weights in the scales of time. Human make weight is a reference to the weight that used to be used to measure precious things like gold and silver, the make weight. So each human being, although tiny, is also at the soul level a make weight in this attempt to rebalance the world and enter another cycle of life. And so are we small, frail, and overwhelmed? Yes. Are we tuned in some deep way to the dynamics of the world, of the cosmos, of nature, of the capacity for to be present and allow things to die and fall or dissolve, and also be present to those things that are trying to awaken? Yes. And we become the make weights. And added to that has to be the notion that all meaningful change in culture begins in the individual soul. The idea of changing people from the top, big agreements, singular beliefs, a single idea. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work. It leads into polarization. But if something awakens in the depth of the soul where the individual struggles to work out a dynamic balance between that which is old and that which is new, or that which is senex and that which is puer, or that which is young and involved with the dream of life, and that which is old and wise, you can layer the pairings all the way down. As that awakens, the person becomes a make-weight. And in doing that, we're not being heroic. We're simply living an expression out into the world of the creative depth and imagination of our own soul. And my sense of it is the Kairos moment becomes transformational when that happens to many individuals at the same time, not because of some figurative agreement, but because of an agreement with one's own soul, and then an awakening to the potentials, which begins to affect not just the individual, but others get affected and so on. So that's part of the idea. And I'm saying that we don't have to make this all up ourselves and figure it all out and be in that heroic position, which I think is part of the problem. But at this point, because the archetypes are universal energies, ideas, and images all together. There's three parts: the image, the idea, and the vital energy are all composites of the archetypes. And so the archetypes, in a sense, suited to the conditions in the outside world, which I used as the title of this event: healer, mentor, elder, guide. The idea wasn't to say, I'm now going to teach you how to be that. And the idea wasn't either to say, by the way, I am all of that. The idea was to say, these are the archetypes that naturally stir and awaken at the end of an era, and when there's so much tension and polarization in the world. The archetype, take the healer. The archetypal term is wounded healer. It's a complex. It has the wound and the healing together. And so this complex dynamic awakens the mentor and the student. They awaken together. And when we allow those energies to move through us, we become both. That's why the term wounded healer is so beautiful and properly attuned. In other words, the idea is to find one's way of healing, and you can't really do that on a soulful level unless we engage with our own wounds. And so on the engaging with the wound side, we become deeply human and realize everybody's wounded. And that gives us a greater reservoir of both sympathy and empathy, right? The healer has to remain in that empathic situation. And then the healing part, the way I go after that is the old idea that every elder is a healer. So that doesn't mean every elder goes to medical school. It means that when a person follows the natural dynamic gradient and arc of their life, let's say they're an artist, they become capable without planning it to bring some healing through the art. And so whatever it is, a person becomes someone who works with elements of nature, maybe entering through the door of science. But as they learn about nature itself, they become aware of how nature heals, and that helps them become a healer that can join nature, but also bring healing ideas, images, and energies back to culture. So that's the archetype. The archetype, I'll repeat, it brings conscious awareness to a certain kind of dynamic. It brings motivation. It can add to one's motivation. I'll give the example of the mother archetype. When the mother archetype kicks in, you can see it all over the world. the mother will engage with that infant. If it's a healthy situation, she will engage body, spirit, and soul with that infant, and she will be motivated to do so because of the arising energy of the archetype itself, which is mother and child. She will be more powerfully in that union because the archetype arises. And that, so there's motivation that comes with the archetype, and then archetypes are aimed. The mother archetype is aimed at nourishing and helping to grow the child. So I'm just giving one example of that. And so I'm saying in this troubled world, which is going through a radical shedding, by which I mean institutions are breaking down. Practices and understandings that used to be taken for granted are now, just don't hold energy anymore. And the energies are like free floating all over the place. And I'm saying that motivation to face those things, deal with those things, and integrate more meaning into our own lives doesn't have to come from the ego, for instance, which is easily overwhelmed, or even from the will simply. If we allow it, it can arise from the archetypes themselves. We're not alone. Our own souls are connected to things that have natural healing, mentoring, guiding elements.
Hey. That was a bit of a full speech there. Any thoughts, any reflections that kind of came up for you immediately as you were listening to that? You may be wondering, why did I share that? What's that got to do with anything? What's that got to do with anything? And I guess it was kind of really, well, first of all, it's just to introduce you really to Michael Meade, who's an incredible storyteller. And also we're going to do archetypes next week. So I just thought it was a nice little introduction into archetypes. And an introduction into essentially an awakening of our souls, right, in this moment. And that is kind of part of that is how we engage with story, right? And I love Michael Meade here because essentially what he's saying is that we could look at this moment in the world and go, whoa, it's so overwhelming, like everything's going to shit, like, you know what I mean, and kind of like it's all going crazy. Or we can look within and find those nuggets, those stories, those archetypes, the growth of our own soul, and know that through illuminating that is what we then bring into the world, and that is the medicine that the world needs. So rather than go looking at the world going, it's crazy, let me bring my medicine, we actually go within, and through us really being in touch with that, the medicine comes through, basically. And I feel like he illuminated that very well here. And this is part of story, right? Because this is how we awaken that part of ourselves in through, seeing that it's already been done. And also I love what he talked about, the ancient aspect and the new aspect. It's both. It's not, these are kind of ancient, eternal ideas, but they're also fresh. And they're also very fresh in this moment. And so those two things are equally true. It's important for the empath because all of you are incredibly sensitive. All of you have really deep feeling states, deep knowledge, deep wisdom. And oftentimes, like we discussed in our first lecture, deep wounds. And so part of actually the power of the empath is that getting in touch with. And then that becomes the medicine in the world, rather than wearing a cape. Right, I'm going to take on everything. I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to not have any boundaries. And because the archetype is already there for the empath is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. The archetype of the healer is already there. The archetype of the mother is already there. These archetypes are already present. Yeah. But this is a different way of harnessing the energy so that it actually becomes a medicine in the world, rather than you just exhausting yourself, trying to do everything and be all things to all people. It's more about finding your unique medicine. And how do we find that? Well, there's different ways. We've discussed all these different ways, but one of them is through story, through myth. So any thoughts on that before I move on? Any comments, questions around that? Okay. All right. So first things first. We're going to go in a lot of different directions today. It's going to be a little bit of a wild ride. Yeah. But follow me, come with me on this. So first one is modern myth, right? So modern myths are the myths of our time that capture the zeitgeist and elucidate what this moment in history represents to us on a more conceptual level. It's where we can interweave our personal lives within that of the bigger and larger picture. So I'm quite a big believer, right? You know, we're in a historical moment. I don't think it's escaped any of our, it couldn't have escaped any of us, all the things that are going on in the world right now. And I don't really watch the news. I'm not really plugged in like that. And so, you know, it really shows how, because I speak to different people, and people that will tell me, hey, it's bad. It's bad. And I'm thinking to myself, it's really strange, because I'm that's not what I'm feeling. That's not the energy that I am tapped into, because that's not my world, and that's not the story, and that's not the narrative that I've chosen to connect with. And so I'm kind of always in this dance between actually the personal and the collective, the personal collective, because it both makes a difference. Yeah, it makes a difference. We might not think we make a difference, but we do on this individual level. That's where our power lies. And so I guess to some extent, this lecture is really kind of about how are we weaving these stories into our lives. So we have ancient myths, right? So I think all of us to some extent are aware of ancient myths. Adam and Eve is, you know, one. You know, Greek mythology, we all know about Greek mythology. You know, the epics in India. You know, just kind of all of these kinds of stories about how the world came about, what it means, what's important, who's in charge, who does what, and why do things happen the way that they do. But how do we plug into a modern myth, particularly in this moment, right? This moment in history, this moment right now, where is our modern myth that we can kind of like connect to and plug into? So I kind of pulled out a few that I felt might be appropriate for this time. Again, you may want to, you know, go on your own kind of wormhole and see what you can find. So the first one is star seeds. So I don't know, has anyone heard of star seeds? Anyone here familiar with the term? Heard of it? Yeah. So star seeds, interesting idea. So the story of the star seed. So this is not a literal. So remember, this is not a literal story. Yeah, it's a myth. It's something that awakens and speaks to parts of ourselves, that awakens something that's bigger than us, essentially, like what Michael Mead says, that kind of like speaks to the soul, essentially, rather than just the mind. Yeah. So the story of the star seeds, you know, star seeds are part of a group of souls that belong to other intergalactic realms, and are thought to incarnate on Earth in human form. They are multidimensional beings that are here on Earth for higher purposes and mission. You may also hear the term indigos or crystal children, which often simply refers to a generation within which these special souls were born. There are different star seeds because they come from different galaxies and different parts of the universe. So they're different star seeds, different families and tribes. And you may resonate with one in particular. But these different tribes and groups all have slightly different mission, purpose, and also different personalities. All, however, are here to raise the vibration of the earth and help humans transition to a more peaceful and spiritual advanced timeline. You know, I had to include this. It's a little bit wild. And part of me sort of, as I say it, even I think, am I actually doing this? But actually there is a part of me, because it does. It's like it's there to awaken the imagination. Yeah. To the imagination of what if you're star seed and you've been planted here on Earth, and there's a mission for you, and your specific mission, and your specific mission is to find within you your medicine, your truth, your connection to your soul. And just by doing that, you then bring this into the world, and you are part of an intergalactic for team basically who are here to raise the vibration of the earth, particularly at this time in history, to turn things around and make a difference in the world. Like, what if that was the story? What if you're an empath? Because that is what you've been called forth. That is what your capability is. Yeah. So it's just a different way of seeing our, we can see our sensitivity as like, oh, it's a drag. It's hard work. I pick, or like, actually, you're part of a secret intergalactic task force who are here to save the earth. It just puts a different spin on things. So let's look at, I love this. I actually do believe I do believe this is a genuine concept. I actually do believe this. So let's look at some of the star seeds, because there's different ones, the different tribes. We've got Syrian star seeds, Palladian, Arcturian, Lyran, Orion, Andromedan, Vega, and then there's just general star seeds, which we might call old souls. So yeah, they have like a dual mission of like basically elevating their own consciousness, and uplifting the planet's consciousness. So yeah, like you might find that you kind of feel more of an affinity with all of these. So obviously Syrians are associated with the star Sirius, and are believed to be advanced souls with a deep sense of wisdom and knowledge, seen as natural leaders, and focused on healing and spiritual growth. Palladians, which I self-identify as Palladian, but they are associated with the Pleiades cluster, often considered highly intuitive, creative, and sensitive, and they're believed to help humanity transition again to a higher consciousness, deeper understanding. Arcturian are thought to have connections to the Arcturus star system. So all these like stars in the universe, like, that are, yeah, like I didn't even know there was this many galaxies. So thought to be more intellectual, analytical, and spiritually advanced. So kind of, if you kind of more have an intellectual mind, this might more resonate. And so kind of more about learning and sharing knowledge and teaching. Aisha, yeah, jump in.
I know it's a myth, but I've actually seen here there are people who are doing Arcturian healing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was like, what is this? And I see this, on their page in Dubai, these, like aliens figures, and yeah, they have like pages of long introductions, and so yeah. So if it's a myth, what is it? What is this? What is this?
What does it mean? I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, it means that, I guess what Michael Meade was saying is like, we're not alone. Yeah. Like there is purpose, there's meaning behind our lives. And this is just one, this may or may not resonate with you. This is kind of one way. This is kind of one of a few that I've kind of pulled up. And there are likely to be people who are also aware of this, who use the imagery, who use the archetypes as well, may or may not be connected to these star seeds. So we have to be mindful of that, that some people will use these images and this knowledge in ways that, might feel like they advance their own interests, or maybe they're bringing true knowledge and healing into the world. I can't say for sure. But I definitely know this is like when you start to dive into this world, like again, like this might be something you might want to do in terms of just, yeah, like diving in a bit deep and doing more research on this. There is a lot of work on this, like in terms of like lots have been written. There's people that are channelers that say that they're channeling to these people. I mean, if you even believe like the government kind of stuff, Area 51 or those kinds of things where like, contact with aliens, has been made and things like that. This is out there, it's out there already. So is it true? Does it matter? You know, does it feel true, and does it inspire in you something? And that's really more what these stories are about. Yeah, it's not really about whether or not, like, okay, this is provably true. Does it inspire your journey? Does it give your journey a context? Does it give you a deeper understanding of yourself? Is there parts of you that you see in this story? And can that give you strength and give you a sense that, like I said, you're not alone, and there is purpose and there is meaning to your, not just your life, but whatever it is you're bringing forth into the world. Does that?
So basically, then it's not a myth. It's a fact. It's actual. You know, if they're offering courses and they're, yeah, okay, maybe I'll go back on their website and
You
read
have to,
more.
and maybe share that in the group, actually, when you afterwards share that in the group, because I'd love to check that out and see. Because yeah, I mean, there will be, definitely people on Earth who say that they are in contact with some of these or with some of these intergalactic tribes. That, you know, there's people people will say there is an intergalactic meeting point where all of these tribes come together and they have like a monthly council meeting and talk about, well, what are we going to do next, guys? What are we going to do next? Like, what's the next task force? And you know, so there is like, this is a whole other world. Like, if you think about this, like this, if you think about, right, what are they telling me on the news and the TV, and then whoa, like, and then I'm entering into this whole other world. And I'm not saying this to radicalize you or to even tell you this is true. That's not the intention here. You may take this and feel the truth in this. And I would say to you, if you do, then there's a reason for that. That's not necessarily the purpose of me sharing this. The purpose is to give you a sense that there are different stories about ourselves. There's different ways that we can understand ourselves in the world and the meaning behind it. And that may come from different places. Like I said, you know, that for each of us, that might be different. For some of us, it might be ancestral. You know, I know there's some people who kind of just really feel that the ancestral story is the one that holds their sense of meaning and purpose in their lives. And that feels a bit more closer to home. It's not out there in the starseed world. You know, it's something that kind of feels very immediate and given. And so it just depends. It's just an offering, a way of, yeah, creating a story of meaning, yeah, in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do share the website, drop the website. Actually, we need to know what the Arcturian healing is. So yeah, I mean, I won't go into all of this. Like, you can kind of see Andromedans are kind of like, I'd say Palladian, Andromedan, Syrian are like kind of most popular, like the kind of ones that you'll mostly hear. And I think Arcturian actually is a little bit more rare, but it does exist. And Orion obviously is like one of the stars constellations, you know. So we've heard of the constellation, but may not have heard of like the Orion star people. But it makes sense, right? Because if you think about our galaxy, you know, our main star, which is the sun, we travel around there. We've got about like 9 planets that travel around that. That's our galaxy, or that's our constellation. And then that's just one star in an infinite, you know, think about how many stars are out there, and how many other stars and how many other, you know, constellations are. Like, I mean, it would be more wild actually if we weren't alone. Like, I actually think that to me, that's more scary actually. To think, oh my goodness, really, it's just us in this big vast infinite universe. Like, what? Like, surely not. Like, surely there's other, you know, but who knows? Yeah. And that's the thing. So unless you've got unless you're channeling that and you've got your actual, you know, telescope and you're doing that, you know, it's a myth until that such time. It is a myth that we believe. But when we believe in myth, it's not just we're believing in stories. No, it's activating something deep within us that then brings forth something in us that then gets created out into the world. Yeah. So it has meaning, it has purpose. It's not just a story. It weaves and gives us strength as we move through the world. Yeah. Makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
oh, of course. Um, so, entering into the extraordinary world. So this is applied mythology. So one of the ways we can become a protagonist within the larger mythological storyline is by noticing hidden meanings, signals or signs behind events that happen in our lives. When we start to decode what's behind seemingly mundane events and start to see the messages and guidance this can offer us, we enter into the extraordinary world. So this is not just an imaginary place. Like suddenly our lives become filled with magic. I know all of you will have had experiences and moments like that, even if it's just a couple of days, even if it was just when you went traveling or something, or you did something you didn't normally do. And like there are moments in our lives when we feel like, oh wow, I'm in another world. I'm in another world and it's magic. And this is the magic world. And suddenly I get signs and symbols and signals, and there's coincidences and all of these kinds of things. Yeah. So that is applied mythology. That's when suddenly I am in the story. I am in the magical story. I'm creating the story as it plays out. Yeah. It's not that there's a story and then I'm marking my life against that story. No, that is not what we're doing. Yeah. We are following our souls and we're moving with that purpose. And then having these stories or these guidance that help us understand and contextualize what it is that we are experiencing, so that we have the strength and the inspiration to continue and continue and continue and continue. And in so doing, we create the story. Actually, there was a lovely quote, actually. I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it in the group, but I'm also going to share it now, because actually just as I'm thinking of it, I'm like, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. So I'm going to just let me see if I can where is it? Yeah, this is it. Right. So it's by Joseph Campbell, funnily enough. It's from his book Reflections on the Art of Living. And it says, as Schopenhauer, who's a philosopher, Schopenhauer says, when you look back on your life, it looks as though it were a plot. But when you were in it, it's a mess, just one surprise after the other. Then later you see it was perfect. So I have a theory that if you are on your own path, things are going to come to you. Since it's your own path and no one has ever been on it before, there's no precedent. So everything that happens is a surprise and is timely. And so essentially he's talking, like when we're in the midst of it, it feels like chaos. It's like, oh my God, it's a mess. Like, is this right? Am I on the right way? I have no idea what I'm doing, and then suddenly you look back and you're like, oh, there's this, like, that's what, when we're doing the hero's journey, we're like, oh, that's what we're doing. We're tracking actually, where has my life had meaning? Where has it been guiding me to? And the more that we tap into that, the more we then face those moments when we are in the unknown, in the chaos, in the extraordinary world, we can start to apply this mythology in real time as we're moving and as we're walking. Does that make sense? Rather than reflectively when we look back. It gives us more confidence to do that. Okay. So another, I guess, modern day myth is this book called The Celestine Prophecy. Has anyone heard of this? Has anyone read this book, heard of it? Okay, so this book, it changed my life. It's a game changer, it's a life-changing book. Again, one of those things. It came to me at a moment in my life when it's just one of those books. It will come to you when it's ready. If you feel called to buy this book right now, there's a reason. If you feel like, might be interesting, might not be the time. Yeah. Sometimes I even wonder, is this book, like, is it too old? Like, is it old? And it's like, God, this book is from the 90s and it's still relevant. It's wild, right? I can't even imagine how many lives this book has changed. For me, it was massive. It was like essentially my doorway into what you know, even what I'm doing now, even sitting here before you and giving you this lecture feels so much like I can look back and go, whoa, like a lot of it started with me reading this book. So I had to include it here because it was kind of my first introduction. And so I worked with the experiential guide, not the book. I didn't really enjoy the story, but anyway, but there's a story. So it's a story and then there's the experiential guide. So there's the book about the story and then you just follow the story. And then by following the story, you kind of get the gist. And then there's the experiential guide, which comes with like kind of practical things that kind of help bring alive the meaning of the book, right? So essentially it's a story about an adventure of a man, and he goes all, it's just a whole incredible kind of story, but he picks up 9 insights. So the Celestine prophecies are these 9 insights, and they are, you know, a means for like spiritual and conscious awakening. That's what the story is about. So we're just going to have a look at those 9 insights now. So the first one is there's no such thing as coincidence. So again, like those moments when you, I don't know, maybe you're thinking about painting your house, you think, well, maybe I might change the color of my walls. Then you go to the shop, you bump into an old friend from school and she tells you, oh, her son's just qualified as a painter and decorator. And you go, what? Oh my God, is that a coincidence? Like it could be as small as that. You know, the coincidences are happening all the time. Yeah. So the first insight, there's no such thing as coincidence. So when a coincidence is happening, that means there's some meaning making. There's a guidance, there's energy, there's magic, there's something happening here. So the context for coincidence, the second insight, is that the context for the coincidence is meaningful to you. It's meaningful to your uniqueness and your unique history. It's not just a random thing. Like I might have bumped into that same friend and she'd have told me the same story, but it weren't relevant to me. There was no coincidence there because I wasn't thinking earlier that day about a particular thing that they mentioned, you know? So again, it's just noticing where are these coincidences when I thought, oh, I might want to do, I don't know, want to swimming or something. And then next thing, something happens, you know, like it's just these kinds of things. Yeah. Paying attention to these coincidences, meaningful coincidences. Universe is pure energy, third insight. So this is where we start to realize that the universe is pure energy and so are we. And so suddenly I am part of this machine of energy making because I'm part of the universe. And so suddenly I get to choose the energy that I embody. A bit like Aisha, what you said earlier, which is like, I get to choose. Yeah. I get to choose whether I let my fear hold me back from going to the mall or whether I get to say, hey, I see you, but we're going, come with me. You know, these are where we start to make these conscious choices along our path. We get to decide what energy we embody. And then we start to see the fourth insight is the struggle for energy, right? So this is really interesting, this chapter, and we'll talk a bit more about this when we do our last lecture. But essentially when we get our energy from people or when we get our energy from source will make a difference to how basically the harmony within which we're having our relationships. Yeah. Because when we're trying to get our energy from other people, well, there's always going to be a struggle, right? Because now my happiness is reliant on what you're doing, what you're giving me, and vice versa. And this is when we get into these kind of sticky, in another way, we could say attachment, you know, here it's kind of more energetic. And so again, we want to be taking responsibility of like gaining our energy from source. And the book talks about like specific ways these dynamics show up. So it can be really, really interesting to kind of see your own dynamic. And again, take responsibility for it. You know, it's not right, wrong, judgment. It's just like, oh, okay, like, you know, we get to choose, you know. And then the fifth insight is an increase in collective consciousness. So, you know, and I think this is kind of what we're finding. I feel like sometimes I feel this, which is that like the more people that are accessing non-local states, the more people are accessing non-local states. I mean, even I see it even teaching the psychic development. And I'm like, I'm seeing so many more people coming who are like, whoa, I've just suddenly, these are not like necessarily born psychics. These are people who are like, whoa, having a spiritual awakening, and I'm seeing things and I'm knowing things. And I'm like, what's going on? I need help, right? And this is more and more. So the more people are experiencing, the more people are coming into this new consciousness, essentially, yeah, and being able to access these what we call non-local states, yeah, which means that it basically transcends space-time, which is kind of what Michael Meade is talking. These are the realm of the soul, the realm of the infinite realms, yeah. It's timeless. It's everything's on top of each other. It's all here, all at the same time, yeah. And then insight number 6, which is our ancestral inheritance. So it's really understanding our own specific karma. Like my parents, my grandparents, and down the ancestral line, what have I inherited? And these might be big themes in your own life. There might be some reason why, well, not might be, there will be some specific, unique challenge, I want to say, that you will have been given through your ancestral inheritance, some kind of specific karma that we all have our own unique thing that we have to work with. But also always remember, when we talk about, and this could be, we could say epigenetics, even if we wanted to, but we must remember that although sometimes trauma is passed on through the ancestral line, so is healing. Yeah, so we always get both. We got our mum and our dad. It's always both. But there will be something that's a unique challenge to us. I don't know if any of you have seen that. I've definitely seen that in my life, particularly with my mum. And like, there's just certain things my mum's experienced, and I was like, what? Why am I experiencing it? Like, we have completely different lives with completely different personalities. Yet I can see this kind of these similarities play out, and I'm like, whoa. And it's like really interesting, like really understanding, oh, like, is that part of my inheritance, is to kind of maybe like take the baton and finish off some of the work that maybe she wasn't able to, or she's passed on to, and vice versa. And then it's really, really understanding that, because that's not necessarily, I don't want to say what holds us back, but is a kind of our own unique mantle, I want to say, our own unique, the thing that makes us unique. And then insight number 7 is flow states. So this is when we are in flow with universal energy. And we are in a consistent high vibration. So this is, for example, when we are in a flow state, we might want to say that's when we hear the call and follow it, rather than refusing the call, refusing until it's a crisis point and we have no choice. We might want to say, when we're in a flow state, we recognize the call, we know, we have maybe more experience to navigate that, and suddenly, like I said, you're not in the middle of the chaos and going, oh my God, this is chaos. Suddenly I'm like, I know what this moment means, I know what I got to do, and and then you move with that flow state, with that energy. And then insight number 8 is a relationship. So basically, when you're in a flow state and then you start to meet other people that are in flow states, then more relations start to mimic the energy of having a flow state. Yeah. So suddenly more people are embodying these insights, and then more relationships transform and they're more harmonious because of that. And then we have the last insight, number 9, which is collective flow state. So now this is not just me having this flow state. It's not just me and my sister, my friend, my partner, my colleague in connection having these flow states. Suddenly there's a whole community now. So now I've got, there's a whole, maybe it's a country, maybe it's a community, maybe it's a space, maybe it's a local area, maybe it's a group, suddenly are experiencing these flow states together, and creating community on new foundations, on these new principles of higher consciousness. There is also there's the 10th insight, there's the 11th insight, and there's the 12th insight. So it does go on. Funnily enough, don't actually know what the 10th, 11th, 12th insights were. I'm still just trying to get to grips with these 9, to be quite honest. There's quite a lot for me to kind of digest here. But essentially, these are the insights. I would definitely recommend this book, like as an like the experiential guide particularly. I found it at the time when it really helped me. It was like a workbook and helped me kind of make some realizations about myself, I suppose, which is kind of what I always impart to all of you when we come back to shadow over and over and over again, is that the more that we are a mystery to ourselves, the more that we will project that onto the world and call it fate. Whereas the more that we can become more and more aware of ourselves, the more that we, like insight number three, which is we can start to take responsibility for our energy and our choices. And this is how we become more conscious in the world. Yeah. Oops. So, any questions on that or any thoughts? Anyone was kind of, it's all pretty self-explanatory. So synchronicities. Big, right? When we talk about meaningful coincidences, essentially we talk about synchronicities, yeah? So in psychology today, they describe a synchronicity as a phenomenon in which people interpret two separate, seemingly unrelated experiences as being meaningfully intertwined, even though there's no evidence that one led to the other or that the two events are linked in any other causal way. So for example, you're thinking about painting the living room and then you bump into a friend and she just says her son's just, you know, he started doing painting and decorating. And then you like that's, I mean, it's separate, right? That's not, they're not causal, they're not connected in any way. But what creates the meaning is that it's meaningful to us. So Jung defined synchronicities as meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained through cause and effect, because he believed that these were events that were not just random occurrences, but rather manifestations of a deeper order in the universe. So synchronicities can be thought of as messages from the universe nudging you to become more alert to certain things, people, actions, or events that not only offer meaning, but also in some sense of awakening the path that you are being encouraged to follow. So the more that we notice, the more that they appear. Also, we may notice synchronicity more at prevalent times in our lives, or stages or transitions in our lives. So for example, for me, when I started reading the Celestine prophecies, it was like an explosion. It was synchronicity, you know, it was like bam, 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 bam. But these periods in my life, they you know, sometimes it's really strong, and then other times it kind of settle into a kind of like, you know, the normal everyday. Yeah, I'm not in the extraordinary world. Kind of synchronicities feel like they are a signal that we are in the extraordinary world. One thing I would just say, just because, you know, I would say that we are in conscious community. You know, we are part of a whole bigger network of people who are also awakening and raising their vibration, their awareness, and their consciousness. But I would say be mindful of constantly being in a place where you always want to be in the extraordinary world. Yeah, because we need, and in many ways we can understand, again, you know, I thank Jung for this. That's why, you know, when I talk about the beginning, we can think about things spiritually and psychotherapeutically. You know, what I would call ordinary world is often time to integrate. Yeah, it's that time when things settle, that becomes the norm. That's a very important part of the journey. We mustn't think that, hey, the world of synchronicity is better and the world of normal is better. It's not. There's just cycles, and there are times when it's appropriate and apt for things to be really wide open and for us to be captured and transformed. And there are times when that knowledge or those experiences need to be settled and grounded into the psyche. So yeah, I would just say that, you know, again, from that's the kind of more from hindsight and looking back and going, oh, right, yeah. Sometimes, you know, particularly if you're working with a new energy, a new way of being, doing new things, making new choices, there needs to be a little time for that to settle, to integrate, for that to become your new normal before you then, you know, get awakened to the next call. And next thing you know, you're back in the extraordinary world and everything's chaos again, you know. I mean, it depends on our karma, our lives. You know, some people were, you know, up, down, in, out, you know, all the time. For some of us, we maybe get a little bit more time just to settle and just anchor that in, and before the next call comes along. But just something you can look out for. Like I said, it might just be, a thought that you had, and then you see something that speaks to that thought or that feeling. It might even be thinking, God, I've got to phone that person, and they call you. Or, these kinds of things, or like, angel numbers is often a big one, angel numbers. Although I less find that, again, that's probably one thing that's become normal, actually, is whereas angel numbers used to be like, whoa, 1111. I'm like, well, we've all got digital phones, like, and it's not like that. We're looking at our phones all the time, every day. Like, it's not actually that uncommon. So now I feel like angel numbers could be something that's kind of been, settled, integrated into the norm. It's not extraordinary anymore. So again, it's just kind of like, okay, what are these things that like are letting me know I'm in the extraordinary world? Yeah. Okay. Last slide. Just dreams. Yeah. So another way of accessing this. So kind of like I said, this is a little bit, we've kind of sort of thrown you all around the place really today. But I hope it kind of calming together to be a sense that like, so for example, dreams, like we could place dreams in the category of myth, because they're the bridge between the subconscious or the unconscious and the conscious mind. And obviously dreams often have an otherworldly feel. And once we start to understand myth is when we maybe can start to understand our dreams. Well, what are my dreams trying to tell me? Where are they trying to guide me to? What is the story they're trying to say? For some of you may have like really, it may be very clear what your dreams mean. If you're anything like me, I'm like, what on earth is this? I don't know. So I'm still trying to work out how to interpret my dreams. It's not the thing that comes naturally to me, but I did want to mention it because I know some of you will have like really vivid dreams and a real connection with your dreamscape. And this can be another place where you might draw your myth, your story, your understanding of like where life is leading and guiding you to. And so, we'd just say dreams speak to aspects of the soul and the unconscious, and encourage us to have a deeper and more profound understanding of ourselves and the paths that our soul is encouraging us to follow. That's one thing. Like, so I know I shared a lot of This Jungian Life, which is a podcast. I know I shared a lot last week. And I think one of the things I really love about This Jungian Life is they always end their podcast with an analysis of a dream. And I invite you to have a listen to some of those, because it's incredible, actually. When you think about, like, so essentially what they ask is they ask a person, they'll say their name, their age, and then they kind of give a little context of kind of like where they are in life, how old they are, what they're doing. So I work as a nurse and I live here, and, I live with my partner, I live alone, whatever it might be. And then they'll tell the dream, and then they'll be like, more context for this person. This is also going on in their life, and this is the themes that are going on. And it's incredible, actually, how the dream can map onto that, and how our unconscious or our psyche is essentially saying, hey, here's a little nod, here's a little nudge, here's a little piece of information that might really help you understand something here. So again, I would put dreams in this category. This otherworldly kind of magical way in which we can contextualize our lives, essentially. So, journal prompts. I'm going to give you 10 minutes for this. So these are the prompts for today. So the first one is, when was the last time you experienced synchronicity? What was it, and what did it lead to? The second prompt is, do you have a recent or reoccurring dream that you can remember? Did you have a sense of what it meant or the message behind it? Or maybe even in light of this lecture, there may be a dream that you've had or thought, and maybe you want to tackle it. Maybe you want to kind of think about that dream and think about what it might mean, like, particularly in the context of whatever you were dealing with at that time in your life. And also, have you ever been in a relational dynamic where you consciously shifted your internal energy and it changed something in the dynamic? So it wasn't a conscious thing where you said you brought something somewhere, you changed something in yourself and that changed the relational dynamic. Does this make sense? Yeah. All right. I am going to, I tell you what, I'm going to just give us a break from the screen. I am going to copy and paste those in the chat. And then I'm going to give you 10 minutes to just reflect on those in your journals. Oh, okay, there we go. Any questions before we? Everyone's all good. Oh, awesome. You got this. Okay. sound. How are you getting on? Do you need more time, or was that enough time? Could have had a bit more time. How are you feeling about it? Yeah. Anything anyone wants to share? Anyone feel anything, any insights that feel new, or any connections that you feel you want to share in the space? No, you don't have to, of course. Always just an invitation. Okay, so I'm aware we've got 10 minutes, so I really did want to put us into groups, but actually I think it's worked out better, because I feel like Jan and this was a quite a talky thing. So actually maybe it's better. You don't have to, yeah, use your voice. But I kind of wanted to, and actually maybe it's better that I do it with you actually. So we've kind of got 5 minutes where we can kind of just kind of do a little practical exercise together. So essentially, let me share this. Hang on, let me share. It's not a big thing, but I thought it was quite a nice exercise because I think it will help with like interpreting dreams and just generally, and particularly as well for those of you that may, because often I notice this, so sometimes obviously when you start to connect with being an empath, there's a realization of suddenly I have psychic abilities too. And so often I've found that people want to come and do the psychic development course. Sometimes they do them alongside each other. So this is just another way again. So if you're kind of thinking about potentially exploring psychic development, this is another way where, you know, signs and symbols we start to bring meaning. So now we can start to bring forth stories and understand. I mean, I even say it with the tarot cards. Essentially, you're telling a story. You're using these images and the knowledge of what these cards mean to weave a story, and reflect back something important to somebody's life. Yeah. So we can kind of think of this as a different way of doing it. So I was going to put you in groups, but we can do it all together, which is, let's think of a myth or a fable or a fairy tale or even a religious story, and let's unpack the meaning together. And yeah, let's sort of think about how we might think about these things. So if anyone got even if you can just put it in the chat, a fairy tale or a story or a myth that we will probably all know, that we could just unpack together. I'd rather not choose. I want one of you guys to choose. Does anyone one that just the first one, whatever that first one was that came to mind? What was it? Aisha?
Fairy tale, Cinderella.
Cinderella is so funny. I had Cinderella. I knew I knew it was Cinderella. I mean, it's a really good one. It's a hard one, actually. It's not immediately obvious. What does Cinderella mean? I mean, if we were talking in Jungian terms, right? And Jungian believed that when there was a fairy tale, each part of each person or character in that fairy tale is part of the psyche. So essentially, these are parts of ourselves, and they're not just separate. So, for example, the fairy godmother is a part of ourselves. The ugly sisters would be a part of ourselves. The prince is a part of ourselves. So when we think of it like that, I think that might be a nicer way to break it down. Any thoughts immediately?
Facing the fear.
Yeah. In what way? At what part? Because I guess we got to break down a story. So we all know the story of Cinderella, right? Her
She was scared
her mother
of her,
died. Hmm?
she was scared of her stepsisters, but she faced the fear. She still went ahead and she
Yes,
did what she wanted to do. I mean, yes, fairy godmother helped her, but when she wanted to go to the dance, and she did it.
she did, and she met the prince, right? It changed her life.
Yeah.
Um, Go on, Candice. You were going to jump in as well. Go on.
I was gonna say the stepsisters could be her shadow selves.
Yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. We could say, her mother dies, her dad remarries, and she inherits a stepmother and these awful sisters who are the daughters of her new stepmother, right? And they're horrible to her. They're absolutely horrible to her. what might this represent? This represents a change, some kind of loss. That could be literal grief, like a loss of a person, a meaningful person in your life. But it could also be a moment of change in your life where, again, you know, we're in the extraordinary world, right? We're in the new world. You know, something is lost, and now she's in a different world that is not of her making, is not of her control. Go on, Candice. Yeah, jump in.
The fairy godmother could be the synchronicities that
Hmm.
she sees.
Yeah, her higher self, her soul, part of her that comes in and says, hey, you can do this. Like you said, Aisha, facing the fear, saying, hey, you've got this, girl. Like I know it's looking like it's all falling apart and, you know, nothing's fair and it's not going your way, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to get our glad rags on. We're going to go out. We're going to go to the mall. We're going to go and have a look at those beautiful clothes with colors and you know whatever that might be, whatever that thing is for us. Yeah, like that thing of like, oh, I'm going to go and do the big thing that I don't think I've got in me. But there's a part of her psyche that says, you can do this. Magic's with you. You can do this. Yeah. Then she goes to the party, and what happens? She meets the prince. You know, and if we could say, I mean, we could say that was, you know, literal. I mean, I would say it's love, you know, whether that be romantic love or whether that be the story of love, the success of bonding and binding our lives with love in a tyrus of synchronicity, like you said. I would say the synchronicity was meeting the prince, right? Because it's the moment at which she faced her fear, overcome, and then went to the dance and then had a synchronistic meeting that will change her life forever. You know, this is the, oh, wow, life will never be the same again, but in the best possible way. I mean, it is Disney. Okay. So it's a happy ending. We don't know what happens after they've been living together for 10 years and they've got kids and, you know, maybe his business ain't gone so well and now he's, you know what I mean, now he's drinking and who knows. So we don't know that, part. They don't tell us that part of the story, but we know that they lived happily ever after. And then there was also something about this the slipper, right? The slipper is unique. He couldn't just have fallen in love with anybody. It was her, you know, and the slipper is a representation of that there's no one else that he could have fallen in love with. It had to be her because that was the nature. And had she not gone to the party, he wouldn't have met her and he wouldn't have known that his love existed, you know? So it's a very beautiful story. And then what happens with the fairy, you know, the god sisters, you know, they get exposed, right? You know, they get exposed for who and what they are. Um, but she doesn't abandon them, does she? She doesn't abandon them. I mean, she just goes to live in the palace. She's like, peace signs, I'm going to live in the palace. It makes me, when I think about Cinderella, it makes me think about this meme, and it's like a meme of like her running away, going like, it's midnight, I've got to go, I've got to go. And then like basically it's like him going, you can't go. And she just turns around and goes, hey, just let me tell you one thing first of all, no one tells me what to do, okay? And then basically leaves. It just makes me think of this meme. It's hilarious. What might the midnight thing mean? What might that mean? Because that feels like that's quite significant. Why can't she stay the whole night? And why can't they have their happy ending from there? Why does she have to leave and come back? Why? What is that? Go on, Aisha. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but what I'm getting is like they say that when opportunity comes, take it, because once there will be many opportunities will come in future, but once this door will close,
Mm.
there will be more door open, but this one will be gone forever.
Mm.
So the importance of being in the moment, importance of
Mm.
I don't know if I'm making sense. I mean,
Yeah,
this is
no, that
what
makes sense. It makes sense. It makes total sense. Um, anyone else? Shannon, I know I saw you unmute. Yeah.
I was gonna say that I felt like that's fear because at midnight her true self was gonna be revealed, right? She was gonna go back to the maid outfit or whatever that reality was. So I think it was kind of fear. So she was kind of running away from her reality at that moment
Mm.
to kind of expose herself, right? Because she didn't want to show her, I don't know, reality at that moment.
Oh,
Um, because she went to hide. Because if she would have stayed, yeah, she would have changed, right? She had to go home.
Yeah. Oh, that gave me shit. That's something interesting that because I was thinking, what might that mean? And I was thinking, oh yeah, like it is maybe it's that middle point between the new world and the old world,
Right.
where we've tasted the new self, but the old self is still present, and we don't quite believe that I can embody fully that new, there's still a kind of like, oh, I've got to hide myself, like you said. Yeah, I wonder if there's something in that's part of the integration process, part of how, like you said, the truth comes to light in the end because she's found with the slipper, right? With the glass slipper.
And she
Um,
finds her in her truth later when he comes with the shoe. She is exactly herself in her present moment reality of who she is when he finds her and he realizes the shoe belongs to her and everything, which kind of, I guess she accepts herself, he accepts her and like all of that, but I don't know.
yeah,
But with that,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what allows her to live happily ever after to some extent, is that both are true, right? Both of those things are true. She was the beautiful princess maiden with the tiny foot that one person could only fit into that one tiny glass slipper. And also what's true is that she was the maid and been held down and come from this life of like poverty and struggle. Um, so yeah. Oh, I think have I can you still hear me? Am I still here? I feel like I've cut out. Hang on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry. It looked like everything froze and then it told me my internet was unstable.
Your screen is
Um,
frozen. I didn't hear you.
oh, okay. Yeah. It's a bit wobbly. I'm debating whether to um hang on a second. Just moving. I'm just moving. Can you hear me now? That might be a bit better. I'm just moving on to my hotspot. I just hotspotted it. But well done. I mean, I'm aware of time. If we could, I would love to have done more. Like I'd do more stories, and so, but just aware of time, and I definitely want us to finish on time today. But I guess I hope that kind of illuminates like maybe a different way of understanding these stories, yeah, and the different what might be the deeper meaning, and we see it again, like we saw it in Cinderella, right? Even right, there's the kind of normal world. It's interjected with the death that then she's into the extraordinary world. The call is the fairy godmother. Is she going to go to the ball? All right, she's going to go to the ball, and then she's got the trials and tribulations, the enemy, everything she has to face, which is I got to get home by midnight. But then obviously, and then part of the coming back into the ordinary world is this integration, like you said, this capacity to be herself, and still be with the prince. So we see it. You can see the cycle. It's there even in that, and yeah, so which just speaks to our homework. I will send this to you in the group as well, just to remind you. But this is just around observing narratives. Yeah. So just noticing how narratives play a part in your life and in the world. How do news stories frame stories? How does the framing affect the way that we understand what the story is? What is your story? What stories are you telling yourself and about your life? And do your friends and families tell their stories? And what do you feel that they are saying about them? And just what do you notice and observe? It's more just seeing how story narrative is interweaved in our lives, in our personal lives, in the lives of our communities, the people around us, our close ones and loved ones, but also in the wider world, right? Through television, through film, but particularly through news as well. Yeah, so just a chance to just observe, like, okay, where are the stories and how does it affect how we look at something and how we understand its meaning or the story behind it? Does that affect how we engage with it and what information or meaning we take from it? Yeah. Good. All right. So I'm going to send you this. I'll send you this in the group with the recording, and anything else that I can think of that comes to mind. But yeah, we'll close there unless there's any other questions, thoughts before we finish. Okay. All right, let's just close up just quickly. Let's just take a moment. Let's just take left hand onto the heart. Let's take the right hand onto the heart. Let's just come back to that heart energy that we connected with earlier. That beautiful protection, that bubble of light around us, around our loved ones, and anyone else we choose to share this beautiful light with. Know that it is within us at all times. And it is our guide to destiny. It offers us protection, support, and a place to rest and be comfortable, to accept ourselves, to know ourselves, and to connect to the energy of love and acceptance and compassion. Again, let's just take a deep inhale, breathing that in. Exhale, softening into that energy. And just take one more inhale. And another deep exhale, softening into the energy of your heart. Again, thank you for your beautiful energy today, for joining me, and all being well, hopefully I will see you next week, and take good care of yourselves. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.